You decide the fate of kings in this world. Here, the conflict between the universities and the crown is boiling over. For centuries, it was unthinkable that the king would stand in the way of progress, but now the scholars are making his rule look weak and fragile. But wait, to decide you need more context. In the West, the Emir Abkin University is the fastest growing yet most controversial institution in the realm. Its rector, Garsan, is accused of supporting heresy for selling land on the coast to foreign merchants. The deal filled the university's coffers but alienated new followers by stretching the way of a leaf. Meanwhile, in the East, the oldest and most prestigious university, Sisai Maron, is led by Abeba Sepa. She's one of the wisest people in the kingdom and the inventor of a mechanical device that measures time. Yet, she can't stand a king who regularly undermines university's work, not doing his part or scrapping their plans for improvement entirely. But before you decide the future of the kingdom, let's take a look at how the problem began. Lenieti is a kingdom that arose in a rebellion against the Lahti Empire. In its final days, its rule grew frail, and its bloated institutions no longer served their purpose. But the final nail in the coffin came with the spread of a new religion, Pilhat. Its future prophet, Nadareye Karayeke, was enslaved by imperial troops after the Battle of the Gungler Plains. He wasn't a stupid man. He knew many languages and would probably become a scholar under another master. Instead, he was bought by Salawere Kotere, a tyrant and cruel owner of an olive field. The farm was a disaster. Salawere tried to control everything, created no tools, and starved his workers. Overseers whipped any slaves who dared to look away from the olives, even for a moment. Nadareye toiled endlessly, and there was no end in sight. Then, one night, Nadareye had a vision. The divine spoke to him, saying, "Faith and ingenuity are twin fires. With them, even the oldest tyrant is cast from his throne." He shared this revelation with his fellow slaves, and together they created a prayer, a way to rid themselves of their master. The divine listened. Not long after, Salawere sold the farm to another patrician. The new owner recognized Nadareye's noble origins and decided to designate him as a local overseer. The farm flourished. Its workers prospered. The master was pleased. A year later, on his deathbed, his final statement was that Nadareye and his closest followers be set free. This was the turning point. The olive religion began spreading among citizens of Lahti, weary of the inefficient and unequal system of the empire. It was a faith of rebellion, and at first the authorities turned a blind eye. But eventually, Emperor Yokohainen banned the anti-empire teachings of olive priests. The province erupted into chaos. Nadareye's followers made up the majority of the region, so the decree couldn't pass unnoticed. Nadareye proclaimed, "The divine is with us. As with the olive farm, the future of Lenieti is in our hands and in our minds." The rebellion was successful, and the state that arose from the ashes of the old system was deeply religious, one where competence met rule. It was Nadareye who established the foundation of the first universities as architects of societal efficiency. Over the centuries, they grew into enormous institutions, teaching generations of priests, getting their own land, laws, and gathering religious taxes from people all over the kingdom. Now, centuries later, those same institutions challenge the throne that once created them. The roots of the current turmoil lay in the struggle for succession. Alemu wasn't the oldest child of his predecessor, King Gadisa. He was meant to become a governor, away from the capital, so as not to endanger his older brother Gadisa Jr.'s position. But when the king died unexpectedly, he couldn't implement the plan, and both brothers were left competing to become king. The universities mostly supported Gadisa, which left Alemu forced to look for help outside Lenieti. He didn't achieve much, as the only power capable of defeating the king of Lenieti, the Lahti emperor, was busy with his own problems. But Gadisa became ill and died not long after. This left Alemu as the next successor to the university's discontent. The country was financially drained, as both Gadisas had fought with the Eastern Coalition for a long time. Alemu decided that the war was lost anyway, so he signed a peace treaty and started repairing the kingdom's budget. One of the radical measures was redirecting the university tax to the crown. It was an austerity measure created ages ago and rarely used by kings, so the decision caused backlash and alienated the universities, which already were not fond of his rule. This left some rectors, like Garsan, with no choice but to seek funds elsewhere. His fairly new and almost bankrupt Yemi Arabkin University needed investors to stay afloat. This is when foreign merchants from Uzvasari and Al-Seba offered a lot of money for land they could use for a grand trading harbor. That was a tempting offer for Garsan, even though he knew dealing with pagans would damage the university's reputation. They needed the money, as the building itself was in dire condition. The situation was getting more tense, but the final straw came when the king appointed Li Shan as governor of Merenku province. The new administrator had no university background, something unheard of in Lenieti politics. The universities felt insulted. Abeba Sepa of the Sisai Meron University invited rectors of all universities for a strategic meeting. It concluded with the founding of the Wisdom Protection Pact. The participants decided that they would allow reaching for outside help if the king was not able to protect their faith's strongest pillar from financial troubles. They also agreed that if the king threatened the universities on their soil, it would mean breaking the sacred law and rendering his rule unlawful. The king was horrified. No ruler could be legitimate without the support of universities. That would make his rule look no better than that of an uneducated peasant. He decided to back down and return the taxing rights to the universities. He also promised to return the tax money he had collected once the kingdom regains financial stability. He tried paying a visit to most universities to improve the situation, but none were eager to let him in. A month passed, and the king was visiting the town of Siri. He invited the local merchants to gather more funds. They were to have a grand feast. After all, you can't strike a deal without a good meal. The event was, in fact, a great success. Many patrons decided to support the crown. The king, filled with joy, went to sleep. He woke in the middle of the night to the sound of quiet steps in his own room. Then he saw an intruder with a knife and immediately reached for his own weapon. After a brief but intense fight, the spy fell dead. The guards came in late, but luckily the king wasn't injured. However, he was left in total shock and couldn't sleep for the rest of the night. He was at his limit. First, the whole university situation, while he had only been trying to repair the kingdom's budget, and now the attempted murder. What if they were connected? Is it possible that the rectors, people of wisdom, would hire an assassin? He was utterly shattered, unsure of what to do. And that's when you can help. Vote in the poll or write in the comments below what the king could do to recover his position and avoid getting killed. Or maybe make him do nothing and see what happens. Thanks for watching and subscribe to know when the next part comes out.